And good morning. Welcome back. This is Peggy's Place. I'm Leanne Lindsay with you today as your host. And coming up right after these announcements, we've got Michael Barron-Wike, architect here on the North Sonoma coast and southern Mendocino coasts. And that's coming up in just a moment. He's here with me in the studio, and we are also live on YouTube today. And we can be heard around the world at kgua.org. And I'm afraid, caller, that I'm unable to answer your call as I'm the only one here and cannot answer your call. We are on the air. And so there we go. Now it is a beautiful day outside. We've got some clouds to our north. It may be a little bit of a moisture we hear, but we hope we get a little bit of rain. It's about 55 degrees outside under partly cloudy skies here in Gualala, California. And let's see, as for the announcements, there is a summer reading program at the Coast Community Library up in Point Arena, and that's starting today, June 11th through July 23rd. They're going to have reading challenges, events, and prizes for children, teens, and adults. And you can contact them for more information at 882-3114. That's 882-3114. There is a farmer's market up in Point Arena, and that starts 3 to 6 p.m. today. And that's going to be at the general store parking lot, 3 to 6 p.m. in Point Arena. Down here in Gualala, I understand that the Mendocino County Public Health Department, or maybe RCMS, is doing a COVID testing at the Gualala Community Center from 9 to noon. But I've been looking for that information, cannot find it. But as far as I know, they are doing COVID testing there. And I know that you can do a walk-in or call in to get your vaccination right here at RCMS. So just give them a call as well. Speaking of farmers market, we've got another one here on Saturday in the Gualala Community Center lawn area, and that is going to be from 9:30 to 12:30. We love that farmers market. And then I believe also on Saturday, if you can contact the Redwood Coast Democrats on their Facebook page, you can message them to get information about the 5th District Supervisors Town Hall. And I just got an email in from Lynn with the Redwood Coast Democrats. And it's going to be from 10 to 11:30 a.m. with Sonoma County 5th District Supervisor Linda Hopkins and Mendocino County District Supervisor Ted Williams. And you can contact again to get the Zoom link. Just go to their Facebook website and message them. Don't know how else to tell you to get that information. I don't see the way to do that, Lynn, but anyway, that's the best way I can tell you to do that right now. Okay, so one more thing I wanted to tell you about, actually gallery exhibits that are happening up in Point Arena at the Coast Highway Art Collective. They have their ongoing events going on right now, and they do have a couple of artists who have been showing, and I was looking for that email because it got buried. But let's see. I know that they just got some clothing in from, I believe it's called June 5th. And they do have a couple of other artists there showing as well. So contact the Coast Highway Art Collective to find out more about what they're doing. Linden Design in the Sea Ranch is also open 11 to 4 Saturday for their gallery exhibit. And there is an art opening at the Dolphin here in Cypress Village. And that is going to be The Two Visions Emerge, featuring the works of Mark Guthrie in glass and Lorraine Matheson in multimedia. I have some of her artwork and it's beautiful. And that exhibit runs from tomorrow, June 12th through August 8th. And they'll be open tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that's right here in the Cypress Village at Dolphin Gallery. Just one more note, and that is about the pay and take. They are accepting donations coming up this Tuesday from 9 to 12 at the Gualala Community Center. Wow, That was a lot of announcements there, but we are done with that. And we're now ready to welcome our guest, Michael Barron-Wike, architect, to Peggy's Place. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad to have you on again because what you are doing in energy independent design along the coast is so important for our community. And why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your background and how you were also influenced by the Sea Ranch design?
I agree, especially listening to Jamie Sundstrom talk to you yesterday, and how the real estate construction and home sales is just, skyrocketed along with the national changes that are happening in the country. Sustainable design kind of started for me in first of all with the teachings from my professors at Cal at Berkeley in architecture, because they were just starting the Sea Ranch at that point, and a lot of them were teaching me what they were going to put into this project here. And then moving up here, not even really knowing Sea Ranch was here, I got involved with an environmental lifestyle that taught me that nature was probably the most powerful source of design. And
that's well put.
Right. It really is. And it sustains itself. The very basic premise of nature is that as it changes and fades out in its prime forms of life, it starts all over again. And it comes from what came before it. So with that in mind, I've given that to my philosophy over the years and embraced that as the core of my design concepts from the very, very beginning, which was back in the 80s. So what we'll be seeing today is actually a follow-up of what the program that we had a couple of weeks ago here on KGUA that showed my latest zero energy home, the Fowler Residence. And today, using it as a foundation, we're showing the Doss Residence, which was my first zero energy house. It was completed in around 2019. And it was certified by Build It Green in 2014. It's the only Build It Green home that's certified in the Gualala area. It actually sits, as you can see, right on the river mouth.
Well, just one of the reasons why we are using our YouTube account today is because we are showing on our screen right now the PDF design that was done by whom did this?
This was actually created by my wife, Kelly McLaughlin.
And it's a beautiful overview of this home that Michael is talking about that was created right at the mouth of the Gualala River going out into the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
And why don't you describe for those who are on YouTube and for our radio listeners what we're seeing here?
Well, this site actually was very, very challenging. A lot of people were intimidated to build on it because it sits clearly visible from the county park at the Gualala River mouth, and had environmentally sensitive plants on the site. So the Dosses came to me and asked me if I could do a house for them and get it through the Coastal Commission. I said that I've had good luck, I'd do my best, and I was excited to be able to have the opportunity to do something that I felt would respect the existing environment, but also capture it for those people that lived in it. So this house does that. This house actually follows the contours and the curves of the existing terrain. You can see the way the sand spit on the beach and the way the river flows into it is kind of an inspiration to the shapes and forms that I used. It's also a perfect site for passive solar collection and energy because the sun comes up right at the river and comes into the tall sweeping windows that you see in the center picture that let the sun in early in the morning. That floor is all 8-inch thick concrete slab that's insulated, so it's the thermal mass, and actually stores the heat for the house long, past the sun sets.
It's a stunning home.
And
Stunning.
it's a great place to watch the natural life outside. When the beach covers with seagulls and the whales come in the seasons, and the fog and mist lift off that river in the morning, and the pelicans just float right along the edge of the bluff face. It's a real place to experience nature.
And we do experience extreme weather here too.
Yes.
High winds and all kinds of weather coming at us. So I'm sure that also would then lead you to choose certain types of materials.
Materials and forms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forms.
The outdoor space, if you look at the lower picture there of the main living space in the center, that roof directs the wind up and away. In the summertime, the winds come from the northwest, which is what those windows face, and so the wind is directed up and over the roof, leaving the space on the opposite of the two-story structure for outdoor living. And the garage itself faces due south.
So here,
that structure with the glass doors in the lower left and the curve of the roof in the center photograph, that's where all the solar panels are placed to get photoelectric, and it faces due south without any hindrance for sun exposure. And then, of course, as you say, the materials need to be durable, and fireproof. So it's all stucco on the exterior with metal standing seam roofs that are also fireproof. And the balcony for the upper master bedroom, you see there, floats out over the main living room. And the lower area, actually, the living space is split into two rooms. The great room, which has the kitchen, faces the river, and then there's another sitting room that faces the sunsets. So you can actually move through the house for the time of day and again witness nature.
Let's see if I can find that picture here that you're talking about.
There's the main living room with the kitchen. It's like a restaurant, really. There's no overhead cabinets for the kitchen, and you can sit at the bar, curved bar, and then the dining room table is next to it, so you can seat about 12 people. Then there's a fireplace at the end of the room. That's the upstairs staircase that goes to the master bedroom.
Okay, I think this is the picture I'm looking for.
That looks more towards the southwest, but yeah, I don't have a picture that from the inside that looks directly at the sunset.
But that's a beautiful place to sit, right over there in the corner where all the glass and the windows are, looking out over. Is that the mouth of the river, right?
That's the beach.
That's the beach.
Yeah, and then the point, it goes out to the
Gualala River Regional Park.
Yes, yeah. So I was leery about how well this would be received by the Coastal Commission.
I was just wondering the same thing.
I was really careful to make sure that all of the geology and the botanical was done by the best people, and then created a footprint that would be deemed safe for development. I also took the driveway and made it into a green driveway. So it has actually a plastic base that sits on gravel, and then it's filled with soil and then seeded with native grasses. So when you drive in, you're actually just driving in over where the tire marks leave to go into the garage. Otherwise, it looks like the rest of the meadow.
So right there's what you're talking about.
See the green driveway?
Oh, it's a green driveway.
Yeah, the whole thing is green. It's just being seeded there when you see it. But you have to weed eat it just like the rest of the property. But the idea then is so that the house looks like it's just floating in a natural terrain.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, I didn't mean to jump to all these different photos here. But going back to this design of the kitchen, it is so minimalistic that it does allow the views to really be prominent.
Yeah, and the drawers at the end of the cabinets are actually refrigerators.
These are refrigerators.
All four of those.
How very cool. I love novel things like that. And then let's see, let me just
And
pull up.
it's got an electric induction cooktops because of the solar panels. So the whole thing was certified one of the highest ratings, close to a gold, if not a platinum rating, which is one of the highest awards you can get from either Leeds or Build It Green. They don't have a platinum and a gold, but they have equivalent point structure.
Well, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Michael Barron-Wike, architect here on the Northern California coast, who has been doing some very unusual, stunning designs to complement the beauty of this coast, as well as to focus on being energy independent. So let's talk a little bit about that in just a moment. I do have to remind people that this is Peggy's Place. I'm Leanne Lindsay, your host today, and this is KGUA in Gualala. We are streaming around the globe at kgua.org, and we are on YouTube, where we are showing you some of these photographs. So just go to YouTube and type in KGUA, and it'll pull up our channel. So let's talk about some of that energy independency.
Well, this house is being used as kind of the base for that topic. A lot of people wonder what it is they can do to become more sustainable in their own lives and their homes. You can actually go to energy.gov, which is a website that gives you guidelines for how to become more sustainable in your lifestyles. Not just your home, but also how you live. A lot of people want this kind of living, but they don't live that way themselves. So it also teaches you in ways that you can conserve energy in what you're using now without doing anything different. But in addition to that, there are bigger bangs for the buck with insulating your home, checking to see where it leaks, using Energy Star rated appliances, making sure that the tighter you make the house, the cleaner the environment is inside. So you can either self-evaluate your energy efficiency, or you can have a consultant come in and do it. You can go to PG&E and get a review of your energy consumption, and then they'll give you the biggest bang for the buck return. A lot of times it's a water heater, or it's a pump that's old, or it's a really bad refrigerator, those kinds of common things. But the main thing, I think, is to look at yourself in connection with what's around you, and try to integrate your life as close to what it would be if you used the minimum amount of energy, or if you basically covered your footsteps and closed out your house energy when you're leaving. Conserve the amount of the time of day that you used your washer and dryer. There's all these different things that most people know about, but to me, this is not just a nice thing to do, or when I started this back in the 80s, it was considered avant-garde. Now, this is actually day-to-day. And fortunately, the state of California agrees and gives you points for and credits for adding these things to your home.
So people can update their homes.
Absolutely. And in updating them, you'll be able to, for example, when you're going to be remodeling significantly, the state wants you to add solar panels. If you're going to add solar panels, then you might as well consider electric cooking as opposed to gas. The goal of the state and of the country is to have all electric sustainable energy use for all buildings. So that would mean there would be no fossil fuel use for residents. And that's already happening now. There are heat pumps that are being used. They have dual fuel ones, so you can make a transition. And there are all electric heat pumps that are used here and on inland. There are electric water heaters that are more efficient. You can add solar hot water panels that are done. They now use vacuum tubes to heat the water. So it's much less water in the system, much higher temperatures, and no worry about boil over because it just recircs. And as it recircs into a tank, then you can have a tank system. It can preheat the heating system for the house. So if you have 180 degrees going on all day in this tank,
Mhm.
And the coils for heating the floors or for radiators or for a forced air system that blows over hot coils, there's all kinds of ways to do this. It can all be supplemented by the sun.
So a couple of questions
Mhm.
for those of us who live in the redwoods or in a forest
Yes,
setting.
yeah.
What are our options?
Your options in that situation are just to tighten up your envelope and to make more efficient your energy use. You don't have the benefit of collecting a solar, and for people that apply for new buildings when they're in the middle of the trees, they get a credit for that, so they're not docked for not having the energy on the property that they own because it's not equitable.
I did sign up for the Sonoma Clean Power program
Mhm.
for their to be able to use their solar collection or I guess geothermal um, production that they do.
Yeah.
But what are the other options, though, still that we could get?
Well, as you know from our last conversation, one of the things that I'm really working towards is the wind turbine.
I was going to ask you about that for this specific home too.
Well, this one was the first one that I actually explored the option for a wind turbine. The Dosses were not as much on board about sustainable lifestyle as the current fellows are now,
Mm.
and that just shows the evolution of the average person in being on board and really wanting that.
Well, this
So
is a perfect spot for a wind turbine
it
because of all
is,
the wind
yeah.
that we get.
And so I called the Coastal Commission at that time, which was back in 2011,
Uh-huh.
and I said, "Are you approving wind turbines for the coast?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "Oh, good. How many have you approved?" "3." And I said, "3." And I said, "What were the conditions for approval?" "Well, they had to do a bird migration and bat study." And I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, bats have radar, so I would think once the turbine's in place that they would stay clear of it." And they said, "Possibly, so you need to show that." And then the migration of the different types of birds and the seasons and the time of year and the time of day. So I said, "So what were the conditions for approval for these other turbines?" And they said, "Well, we limited what time of year they could be used and what time of day." And I said,
Oh,
"Okay, well, that's interesting." So I said, "Now, the current turbines are not like the old ones with
exactly.
big blades in the
The
air that are
design,
30 feet tall.
right.
They're only 9 feet tall, and they have, in this case, it had a ribbon blade, and now the new ones have like 3 blades that are like a propeller, but it's vertical.
But it's a vertical,
It's a
so
vertical band that's 8 feet tall, and there are 3 of them,
okay.
and they rotate on a horizontal axis. Well, those are silent and they're only 8 feet off the ground. So the migration issue really gets down to little or none, maybe the pelican consideration because they migrate close to the bluff. But so we're going to work on that for the fallows, and I want to get it, if possible, um, cleared and have that become a prototype so that we can do it along a lot of other places, including in trees. I'm considering
Mm,
it on my property, which is part of it is up on a hill and it faces northwest, and it gets a lot of wind in that one portion. So I'm going to put up an anemometer and actually see how much I get, because they have um, cordless ones now that you can read on your that'll record on your software onto your computer, so you can see what the performance is before you go ahead and buy the unit.
good thing to do. That's something I will actually do for my property. I've got
Hmm.
some land behind me that gets a bit more wind
Hmm.
because it was had some tree removal before I moved into it.
Yeah.
But around my home, it's pretty protected by redwoods, as are a number of our homes on this coast. We're not all down on the bluff,
No, no,
you know.
no. And a lot of my homes are not on the bluff, but they still are passive solar. So
Oh, and but while we're talking about homes on the bluff, explain a little bit about the fallows that you keep referring to.
the fallow residence,
The one that we had talked about on our last
yes.
conversation, but for our audience today, give them a little bit of a description about that.
Okay. Well, that one is also on an ocean bluff. It also gets exposed to the ocean winds, and both the winter and in the spring and summer times. It's a completely zero energy home that's just being completed now. Both homes are totally fireproof.
Oh, that's the other thing. Fires,
Yeah,
because there's new rules about
right.
new home construction
Yeah, well, and
for roofs specifically. Say.
yeah, and those aren't really new rules, but they're rules that are more enforced outside of urban areas, because where it's unincorporated, they have the state of California has requirements for building construction materials on the outside that have to be incombustible. So this house is like that. It has the combination of solar electric panels and solar hot water domestic panels and a radiant floor heating system that's underneath a passive floor mass. During construction of both of these homes, typically all the way through the winter, the interior temperature was 74 degrees. So you really just can cool it by opening the windows if it gets too warm for you, which is simple with the ocean currents. Inland, it's harder to cool the home. So that's where these electric heat pumps come in use. And so you can use it to cool and to heat the house. So this particular home is even more current with the available materials, but anyone that's got a home that wants to upgrade, consider first of all to tighten up your energy use and the envelope that it's in. Consider that if you can collect energy, that solar is the way to go. You can get great solar credits. You can go to electric cooking.
I've seen that solar credits.
Yeah.
For Sonoma and Mendocino.
Yeah, and the state. So all of this is with the goal for all of us is to get free of the dependency on fossil fuels. And by having this, each person doing this, if we're not using the energy, for example, with the wind and the sun, this house and the Doss house can use more energy than they consume. The Dosses don't have a full array of solar panels on their garage. They have half an array, 2.8 kilobytes, or kW. But they only spent $600 a year for energy, for everything.
$600 a year. A year.
Yeah, and they're not even here all the time, but it's collecting all the time. So with the full array, and if they were living here all the time, it too would be a zero energy house. So with that in mind, all of us can head in that direction. Whether we get all of it or not is totally dependent on the condition of the house, the environment that it's in, and the amount of money it would take to do that in connection with how soon it would pay itself back. Because you want to be able to know, at least intuitively or empirically, how soon will my investment be returned.
Well, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Michael Barron-Wike, architect here on the Northern California coast, who was influenced greatly at the very beginning of his many years doing this by the Sea Ranch architecture and design. And this is KGUA in Gualala, 88.3 FM. We are streaming around the globe at kgua.org. Click on the Listen Live at the top of the page, and our Air Pocket app will pop up on your device. I worked hard on that last year to get that going with a couple of software companies. And we are also on Radio Garden and TuneIn and several other internet radio apps. And we are Peggy's Place today. I'm the host, Leanne Lindsay, and we are talking about this topic about becoming energy independent and not using fossil fuels if we can in the future. And towards that, what are some economical first steps that, let's say, people could take? What would be one of the first things if someone has a home existing, and how do they go about, as we were just talking before, updating that place?
Well, there's an interesting site actually called onenergy.gov that talks about all the different points that you can do and how you can actually audit your own house yourself, but also on an intuitive level, and just think about yourself as being comfortable in your living space, and then suddenly you find that at times you're not, and so you explore the the leakage of your home, drafts.
Right.
You can go and feel it yourself, or you can have a smoke test done too. But the most common are openings and places where there are holes in the wall. It can be your electrical outlets. It can be your doors and windows, especially doors at the bottom thresholds. It can be where the ceiling and the wall joins together, or the floor and the wall joins together. Those are common places. In construction that I do, I make sure that they caulk all of those joints when they're building. They don't just stick a wall plate onto the floor and then bolt it down. They put caulking, double rows of caulking all the way along the base before they put the plate, the bottom portion of the framed wall, onto the other floor or onto the slab, because that's where the air shoots out. The same thing where the roof touches the walls, when the roof beam sits on top and then hangs over, all that has to be sealed, or the air just goes up and leaks right out all the way around the entire perimeter of the house.
So that's one thing that people can do with existing construction.
Exactly.
Is go back in and plug up all that.
Right. And if they have old equipment,
Space.
get rid of the old inefficient equipment. Refrigerators have changed dramatically in energy efficiency every single year. And they'll show you on the tags that most people have seen, Energy Star, and how much it uses for the year. Well, if you had one of those little current monitors, you could stick it on a power cord to your stove and see how much it uses now. Most people don't have that, but if your stove is from the 80s,
right,
it's going to be completely 5 times more. I mean, I just replaced my water heater to a new third generation
I have the
circulating pump on demand water heater.
That's what I have.
And my electric water heater went out the door. It dropped $100 a month.
Wow, that's significant.
So those kinds of things are kind of, most people know, but they don't really realize that all of this adds up. So
and another thing, when you brought up refrigerators, in this design of the Doss home, you said that those were 4 different pull-out drawers of refrigerator.
Yeah.
Now I could see how that could also be helpful, because the drawer that you need to pull out, it's only that segment that is going to be open at a time.
Yeah, and one part's of freezer only, so you're not opening and closing where a freezer might be affected by the refrigerator. Right. I mean, they're separate now in most refrigerators, but you've got.
But that's efficient.
Yeah, and it's very low key. The other house, the Fowler residence, has a huge refrigerator, but it's a Sub-Zero, and it's got the efficiency use on the outside of it. It's extremely efficient, well insulated, and all that. But I think when you start to feel the home take care of itself by these things that you do, there's a satisfaction about it. I mean, our kids, I'm raising still young kids at home. We have a vegetable garden, it's probably not economically viable compared to all the work that's done to grow those vegetables.
But I've had many gardens.
Right, but their connection to where food comes from, to the actual source of our lives, this earth, is part of this whole sustainable thing. It's not just about buildings; it's about a lifestyle.
About a lifestyle. That's very well put. What is the next step for this particular residence? Is it finished, the Doss home?
Yeah.
Which is the home that you got the design award for from Autodesk?
That's this one.
That's this one.
Yeah. It was.
Explain a little bit about that.
Well, Autodesk in, I think it was 2008 or so, had just begun an international design competition. And it was actually structured on not just architecture, but also product design, social mass transit design, materials, a lot of different topics. Architecture was one of them.
Mm.
So I was competing against 48 other countries that submitted
48 other
for their
countries.
designs.
Right.
I was chosen as this house was chosen as one of the final projects, but they were not divided into levels of architecture. They went from institutional, commercial, residential. We were all lumped together.
Mm.
So I was chosen out of a group of different kinds of buildings. I didn't win the Spark Award. I went to the final presentation because that's where they were going to announce it. So I went down to number 1 Market Street, and the winning project was awesome. I couldn't even touch it. It was the Catholic Cathedral, all made out of bent wood by Skidmore, Owings and Merrill in Oakland. And it's a beautiful building, and it's very energy efficient. The use of the wood in it was just stunning.
Where is it located?
It's in Oakland. I think it's close to Lake Merritt.
Uh-huh.
Okay. But and it's won a lot of other awards too. But I mean, I couldn't compete with that. So I kind of, felt a little bit slighted, but also loved to see what I was competing against.
Right, but it needs to be a little bit more equitable as far as what
categories,
apples to apples.
Yeah. Right. So after that, they divided it up. So now if I submit again, which I may submit the Fallow project, it'll be compared to other residences around the world. But the fact that it was selected for me out of 48 countries made me feel really good.
Yes.
And I think they really liked the idea of integrating this structure into that unique location. It's clearly visible. The Coastal Commission approved it with no exceptions, no problems,
seriously,
no callbacks, no nothing. There was one citizen that had some objections about the geology bluff being unstable. I wondered about that. I had a 25-page geology report done showing photographs all the way back to the 1800s that were shot by people that were logging at the time, because that was a launching point for cables that went down to the schooners. Yeah. So he had all of that, and then photographs showing that the bluff retreat wasn't 5 feet a year, which was claimed by the neighbor. It was 5 inches a year. 5 inches, a big difference. Yeah. Right. So it's also a point. So most geology for points are more stable than for bays, because it's a point for a reason. It sticks out into the ocean for a reason. I'm going to share screen again. So if you are on our YouTube channel, or if you want to go to see the YouTube video later, you'll get a chance to see what we're talking about. There's the point. You can see the point, and with the house perched up there on it. Yeah. So you're saying that right here on this edge, it loses about 5 inches a year. Yeah. In fact, there's an old photograph. If you go, you can't go around it, but in the air, there's a timber that's still in the stone. Mm-hmm. And then the photographs of the structure that was used to cable, that's timber is part of that original structure from the 1800s. And which original structure? Well, there was see the point? Yes. There was a structure on there that stuck up that was out of timber, and it was driven with steel stakes into the rock for the base of it. And then the structure had cables that cabled the timber down to the ships. Right. And they were all along the points here. In many of the locations that I've done homes, they were used for dog-hole schooner timber launching. At Collins Landing, that's why it's called Collins Landing, which is south of Anchor Bay. And here at Rosamond Creek for the fallows, that was also used below the McNamee store. Right. It just goes, and you can trace it by going to Ukiah, and they have photographs there of all of these different logging sites and launching sites. So that's where we got the original photographs from. Got it. To see what it was. So that being said, I was really pleased that it had only one person in the community raised some concerns, and then you were able to address it. We addressed it, answered her at a public meeting. We addressed it and had all the documentation for her to address. It had been submitted to Gualala community, the board,
Right.
what's it-
GMAC is it?
GMAC. It had been
Right.
so that's where it was raised, was at GMAC. But Coastal Commission was fine, administrator was fine, park system was fine, Fish and Game was fine. So, and I was like, woo!
I bet, because that's the horror story that you hear when you're looking or to buy along this
Yeah.
area is, oh my goodness, that's in the Coastal Commission
Yeah, it's in
area
the coastal zone.
or coastal zone, right?
Well, I've done this for years, decades, and every one of them has been approved that I've done, but I just have to do my homework and anticipate. Sometimes we'll go and talk to the neighbors and say, we're doing a new project here. Do you have any concerns? And then hear it before we're doing it, instead of, oh, here, we just did something. You have a problem with it?
Uh-huh.
So that's, same thing for Sea Ranch. Sometimes you have to go and talk to the neighbor and say, we're filling in, where you're looking right down to the ocean. Do you have any concerns?
That's showing a great deal of respect,
Yeah.
for one thing.
Yeah, it becomes
And
mutual.
consideration, right?
Yeah.
And it's mutual.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be respectful like that,
Mhm.
then they
Hopefully will be.
hopefully in return.
Yeah, and 90% of them are, but
Yeah.
not 95%.
Yeah.
There are the people that are the exception. They don't want any
Of course.
development under any terms, but they are in a development. They develop their property. Why shouldn't someone else be able
Hmm.
to develop theirs? It's just a matter of how.
So what is the scope of the projects that you've done here along the coast from the Sea Ranch? Let's start there.
Mhm.
What was one of your first efforts there? And this is Michael Barron-Wike, for those who may just be tuning in to KGUA in Gualala, 88.3 FM. I'm Leanne Lindsay, the host today for Peggy's Place. So we want to get a little bit more of the history of all the work you've done here on the coast and why you've got that kind of experience to back up what you're doing today.
Mhm. Well, the very when I decided that in my last YouTube video with you, I talked about my going to Ireland and coming back from that 6-week trip to Ireland, England, and Wales, and starting my career on my own after working with other people. And the base was solar design. That was the root of it, and it was because of all these influences of the environment that I told you about, and reading and seeing kind of what's the core of architecture in this country, to which I was, the first generation to be here of my family, and what were the origins of the most durable architecture to me, and it was native architecture. It was the architecture that was here long before the white man,
Mhm.
because
And
they had to
the
figure it
indigenous
out.
culture.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the Pueblo structures just swept me away, and I saw them in person in Albuquerque and in Santa Fe, and then went up to these mesas and went into the cliff dwellings, and I just thought, oh my God, these people they had it together. They knew what they had to do to not just be there today and tomorrow, but to be there for centuries.
That is true.
And that's, to me, what inspired the reason and the core of what I do. So the Hershberger House was my first pass at solar design in 83 or 84. No, 81. Yeah, about 81.
And where is that located?
That's up on Iverson,
North of Gualala.
Iverson Lane, north of Gualala, about 8 miles, something
Okay.
like that. And then Sea Ranch, I had worked for different architects and designers before I went off on my own. So I kind of knew the rules and regulations. And of course, I've been influenced by my professors. So
I remember you telling us about standing there in front of the elevator, and above the elevator was
Larry Halperin's sketches of the Sea Ranch, hedgerow concept and the development that are his most famous drawings in his original books. So I had no clue as to what it was, but I saw the focus that he had on integrating human living conditions into nature. And certainly when 10 square miles of coastline was available from the Wilson brothers for, to convert the sheep ranch to the sea ranch. What an opportunity. And his concept of clustering and open space is still to this day unique. You just don't see it. You don't see it around the world.
When you're either hiking or biking or horseback riding on the sea ranch, it's lovely to be able to have an open space in between the homes to enjoy the beauty of space and place.
Yeah. So I've done different residences both on the bluffs and up in the trees at Sea Ranch over the years, remodeling new homes. But I always kind of left my foot out the door with doing coast homes so that I could have even more freedom to advance what I call now the next level of sustainable design. It's one thing to fit into the environment. It's another thing to make the dwelling that you're in as efficient and as comfortable and as inspiring as you can. They worked on inspiration too, but not so much on energy efficiency. That was not really their goal.
And I like the way you said that the home takes care of itself.
Exactly.
Right.
And the people therefore inside it.
Right.
It's kind of, it's like, oh, I don't have to do anything because I built it right.
And talk again about that, how you, from the ground up, create a home like the Fallows or the Doss residence. When you go into design and conceive, what goes through your mind, and then who are a lot of the people that you have to bring in to make your vision come true?
Good question. The site plan is critical. And, when I walk out onto these properties, some of them are inspiring and others are challenging. And the environment ends up setting the orientation, and it offers the opportunity to place a building in such a way that it maximizes the use and the aesthetic of that natural setting, both for views as well as energy, as well as protection from elements and accessibility. So I don't know all of those things myself. So in a case of an ocean bluff piece or anything in the coastal zone, they actually ask us to have a geologist involved to confirm stability, to have the environment evaluated in terms of rare plants and animals.
And animals.
And also whether or not it will perk, because we have septic systems here. So there has to be a place for not only the primary, but for backup. So the geology, the septic, and the botanical are critical, and water, the existence of water. All of those things are like baseline. So those things usually need to be evaluated during escrow and confirmed with a preliminary short text reports that each consultant will do to give the potential buyer the idea that it's going to be what they want.
And would that also include the low-level wind turbines at 8 or 9 feet that you were just describing before? Would it also include a study about that and the impact on bird?
We'll see if it'll be necessary, but it in terms of if they wanted to go wind turbine, it's a no-brainer if there's already been some approved. So the key is to get that one approved and then have that be the prototype for the rest of us. But there's no question that it would be any bluff site would be useful. You then need to look at it. Will it impact my neighbors in any negative way?
Exactly. And nobody wants to see things that are structures sticking up in the sky.
Right. And if it's basically, in this case of the current situation, let's say it's 15 feet in the air for everything. They will also paint it to any color you want. So you could have it done, forest green if it was against redwood trees or whatever color you want, powder coated. But that kind of thing, and the placement, and that it's in a good wind exposure is all, on a case by case basis. And I think each turbine's about $6,500 a piece. Normally for
Oh, good point.
a typical household, you might get two of them. And so you've got basically $13,000. That's cheaper than it costs for the solar panels. So, but it does it at night. It does it in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
So it fills in that other
Gap.
missing gap.
Yep.
That's the other piece I want to get.
Yeah.
And then I think it should be considered. My point that I missed before, all this grid energy that's being produced by us homeowners that we're not using goes into the big grid. If that big grid is
good point.
if that big grid is getting overloaded in the summertime because of demands of other inefficient structures, we're basically holding up the utility companies for a longer life until the grids can hopefully someday be connected. And then all that energy will end up being used more and more efficiently from us supplying them, as well as them supplying us. So that's the key to how it's going to, and that's why PG&E gave in when they weren't giving credits back at the end of the year. They were saying, oh, thanks for all of the electricity, but you didn't use it, so we're going to keep it. There was a class action lawsuit in California that said, oh no, you can store it and charge a certain amount, but the rest of it comes back to us in credits. That's why it's worth doing all this.
Certainly is. And we want to do whatever we can to achieve a level that we are having less impact on the fossil fuels on our planet here.
Until we don't need them anymore.
Until we don't need them anymore. How can people get a hold of you, Michael?
Well, they can contact me on my web page, mbwarchitect.com.
MBW?
Architect.
For Michael Barron-Wike.
Right, architect.com.
Okay.
They can look me up on Google, and I'm on House. So I've got this project and other projects showing on the House page.
The House page.
Yeah, HAUZZ.com.
Okay.
House.
Okay.
And it's one of the major websites today for residential work.
HAUZZ.com. Okay.
So my work is there under Michael Barron-Wike Architect in Gualala, California. And just Google my name and you'll find me, my phone number and all the rest.
What are some of the projects that do you have lined up going forward?
Well, I just signed on for 2 new Sea Ranch projects, which I haven't done a new Sea Ranch house for quite a few years now.
Right.
I've done a lot of remodels, but not new. So I want to incorporate more of these materials and concepts on the ranch that I think will still integrate it fine with the community and the massing of buildings, but far more energy efficient. I've done energy efficient homes on the ranch, but these will be hopefully even more so.
Oh, that's really good to hear. We definitely want to be energy efficient as much as possible. And talk about some of the other entities or people that you bring in to help with the construction.
During the construction?
Right.
Well, in the case of all of them are local people. They're the heating.
This is one of the reasons I'm asking.
Yeah. I mean, I can give names if you'd like to hear names.
Sure,
All
let's
right.
talk names.
All right. So we have John Schmidt Construction did the Fallow residence. Russ Olson built the Doss House. He's retired and frankly battling for his life right now with prostate cancer.
But, we're sending our thoughts out to you.
Yeah. Sweet man. He said he wants to get up here though to see the Fallow House. He's excited. Then we've got Mel Electric did all the solar panel work and the battery storage system and the smart house wiring. Brinesky's heating and sheet metal work out of Fort Bragg did all the radiant floor systems and the solar hot water panels. We've got the roofing was done by him also, the metal roofing, all of the let's see.
I'm going to ask you about landscape design and
the landscape
geology.
architect. The geologist is Brunsing Associates. Eric Olsborg is the geologist. He knows more about the ocean bluff area than anyone I know, period.
Really?
Yeah, he
That
really,
speaks volumes right there.
yeah, and I don't switch around with consultants and people if we're working together and it all works. I mean, why keep reinventing the wheel?
Right.
You know, and then as far as the
Landscaping.
landscaping is Lucas and Lucas did the landscape work on the Fallow residence. They're out of Healdsburg
Mhm.
and did a great job. That's being put in now. The Doss house is all just pretty much native plants, so it didn't have a landscape architect.
And
And then Mike Nelson put in the solar panels on the Doss house. So that's
he's Sky Fiber.
and MD Electric.
Okay.
Yeah. And oh gosh, there's so many people. Eric did the tile work. I forget his last name.
That tile work that we saw in the entryway to the Fallows,
Yeah.
who did that beautiful design?
Yeah, that's all Eric.
That's all Eric.
Oh, not the
Fallows. There was
the inlay.
The inlay.
The inlay was done by Kentucky John Melanson. He had a business called Kentucky Forge Works up in Point Arena. He doesn't have that going actively now, but he did do all the metal work and the fabrication for the Doss house. And then Iron Dog did all the metal work from Santa Rosa, did all of the metal and steel frame and the staircase work for the Fallow residence.
So in these last few minutes, what are some of the things that you would like to leave with our listening and viewing audience, both on 88.3 FM, on the stream, whoever's listening in on the stream, and also on YouTube? And
Well,
this is Michael Barron-Wike, architect.
Well, I think for all of us to know that this is not anymore a good idea or concept that is for the future. I think it's now. And a lot of people already know this. It's just a matter of implementing it. And it can start really small for your daily life. In some of the places that I told you, you can look for help. To recap what I had said here, I think what it does in the bottom line of all this is it will inspire your daily life to be able to live in this manner, because you'll feel more connected to what you're from, instead of being in a situation where you do a job, you go home, you go to sleep, you get up in the morning and you do your job. You might have your family as an escape, but you're not connected to the environment that we all came from. So by having this concept and using it in your daily life, in how you live as well as where you live, I think it'll make, in an ideal world, all of us more in touch with where we live and who we live with.
And that is part of the whole concept of living here on this beautiful North Coast. A lot of the people that are drawn here, they want to protect it, and they want to live lightly, not just on the land in the Sea Ranch, but all going north.
Anyway.
I mean, from Timber Cove on north. We need to protect our land here, our ability to live here.
Yeah, resources are limited, and we've already run into it with the water issues here.
Oh, water issues. And Mendocino Village itself will have issues this year.
Yeah. So there it sits right in your face.
Right.
So all the rest of it is we'll run out of too if we don't start paying attention.
Well, thank you so much, Michael, for joining us on Peggy's Place today.
Thank you.
And I'm Leanne Lindsay, your host today. And we are going to wrap this up now. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. This is KGUA in Gualala, 88.3 FM. See you later. We're going to head on over now to Native America Calling, live in progress. This is KGUA 88.3 FM.
There it is.
And they are coming up momentarily. They're down in Albuquerque. They're living on Indian time, I guess. But they will be here in just a moment. We're just waiting for them to come on. And sometimes it's not just them, it's us. Look at that. I have to get us on the right internet.
There you
For
go.
so now I've got what should be the correct one, and I will reload the website, see if it comes on. And we are waiting for Native America Calling. So if that's not going to work, I've got one more option I can do and see if this will work. And it looks like that they are playing, and I'm not sure. Peggy had this problem just the other day, and I fixed it remotely by going to that particular internet. So Michael, hang on with this while we get
I'm
this
still here.
fixed. And it is playing. I'm not sure why it is
See it.
not on air. Let's see. I've got that working. I'm going to close this so I can get back to our